Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today we're going to be painting Abstract Autumn Deer, and I'm going to be sipping on a little Merlot, so let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for the materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. You could certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'm going to be using. I'll be using acrylic paint today. I have titanium white, green oxide, burnt umber, which I'll call brown, chrome orange, deep yellow, and Mars black. And of course you can switch up those colors, but that's what I'm going to be using. For my tools today, I have two tools. I have a number 2 round paintbrush, and I have an angled palette or painting knife, and it's got 2 different lengths of the angle on it. And if you're painting along with me, you're probably going to want to have a cup of water for washing your tools, as well as a paper towel for drying your tools. And down below this video, I do provide you with a couple of additional resources. One of them is a link where you could buy the same paint kit that I'm using, including the palette knife and the paint and the big canvas and all that good stuff. So that's there for you. But what's also down there is a link where you could download a free image of the final painting. So you could print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're painting our sky, or our background for our forest. I'm going to be using my palette knife, and I'm going to be using brown, green, and white. And I'll show you how to apply the paint in a minute, but before you get going on this, I do want to kind of let you know I'm going to be leaving about 3 or 4 inches on the bottom of my canvas that is unpainted. So we're going to use that as our ground later. So you don't want to paint down at that bottom. I am going to have the top of my canvas the lightest, and it's going to be a little bit darker as it gets down to the bottom right and the bottom left of my out of focus abstract forest. So I'm going to start with some brown paint on my knife, and I'm going to just kind of come up a couple of 2-3 inches on my right hand side, and I'm going to just make myself kind of a faint kind of horizon area, so I know don't go past there because I want this to be my ground. And then what I'm going to do with that brown paint is I'm just going to kind of add in these kind of thick sections throughout my painting, especially down at the bottom. I just picked up some green, and I'm going to do the same thing where I'm just kind of applying some green paint in sporadic kind of areas. You could do it left to right, you could do it up and down, whatever is really comfortable for you. I'm not going to wash my palette knife, but I'm going to pick up some white now, and now I'm going to put the white on in very heavy paint application kind of style. So I'm really just kind of almost globbing it on right now, for lack of a more technical term. And then once I have it on, that's when I'm going to start to kind of blend it in with the rest. And if you still have some green and some brown on your brush or on your tool, that's great. But I am making sure that I've got a lot of paint on my canvas, so when I do go to blend it in, these colors are going to almost streak together. So you might be working with thicker or thinner paint than me. Whatever thickness paint you're using, you'll figure it out if you need to add more on your painting. So now that I've got it all on there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosely do these kind of up and down type streaks. I'm not going to be pressing hard with my palette knife, and what's going to happen is these colors will really streak together nicely, and this is going to give me like an out of focus appearance of maybe trees in the background. You could go left to right if you wanted it to look a little bit wider with your trees, but right now I'm just going to be using an up and down kind of technique to get these colors to blend in together. And if you have, you know, thicker spots where it's kind of liney, great. That's what this is all about. This is an abstract type painting. We're just going for the impression of these off in the distance forest trees. Maybe some evergreens are back there. And the beauty of doing something like this is you just get to explore these different techniques and what happens when these colors blend together. So just have fun doing it. You can add more of any color if you feel like you don't have enough white or you don't have enough brown. Just feel free to continue to add colors as you need to. And again, I'm not holding my tool very tight. I'm really just loosely letting it kind of do its own work. I'm not scraping it. I'm just kind of letting it do its own job. It's just kind of blending these colors in together. And again, if you want more white or more brown, feel free to add it. And then you just want to make sure that you have good coverage, like you've got enough paint all over that canvas that you don't have any naked spots on your canvas. And then we're going to use this same tool for the next step. So once you've got this beautiful background on here, you can wash this tool and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are going to be doing the first layer to our ground. I'm going to be using my knife, and the colors that I'm using are orange, green, and brown. And where I used a lot of paint up at the top, down at the bottom, I'm not going to use a lot. So I'm going to start with a little bit of orange, and I'm just going to make a few kind of chaotic spots. I'm really not thinking about it too hard. Then I'm not going to wash my tool, and I'm going to pick up some green paint, and I'm going to do the same thing, just kind of apply some green spots sporadically throughout my ground. Now I'm going to not wash my brush and pick up some brown, and I'm going to do the same thing. Just kind of add some sporadic spots throughout there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape it. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to kind of go across left to right. You might hear me scraping on my easel as I do this. And I'm just going left to right. So what's going to happen is I'm going to end up with these really cool streaks. We do have another layer that we will be adding on top of this later with some more representational foliage kind of stuff on the ground. But right now I'm just kind of getting these on here. If you have, you know, if you want to add more orange or more green, feel free to do so, but I'm just kind of doing it in this like streaky fashion. I am bringing it all the way up to where it hits my my sky or my background area, just to ensure that I have covered my entire canvas. And then once I get this done, we are going to be using this same tool for the next step, so you can wash it and dry it and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are making tree trunks, abstract tree trunks to be exact. I'm going to be using my knife. I'm going to be using mostly brown paint, but you might find, depending on how wet or how dry your background is right now, that you might also want to use white paint. But I would recommend starting with just brown, and then if you feel like you need to add some white, feel free to do so. So what I'm going to do is I am taking my knife and I'm going to decide, kind of make vertical lines where I want these trees to be. I'm going to have some tall, some are going to be a little on the shorter side. You can have as many as you want, and really what I'm going to be doing is just kind of adding a line wherever I want there to be a tree. And then once I've got them all on here, I'll show you how I give them a little bit more of a impressionistic kind of information of like bark and stuff like that. And you'll get the hang of how you work best with the tool. If you haven't worked with one of these palette knives before, or painting knives, they get called both things, just for the record. They're technically painting knives when you're painting with them, but people call them palette knives because they use them to mix paint on their palette. So that's my kind of useless bit of information for today's lesson. And then you can put as many trees as you want. Once you've got the number of trees that you want, if you want to, you can wipe your knife off on your brush or on your paper towel. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my knife and move it to the right or to the left. And I'm going to give it these almost horizontal type marks. And you can make them diagonal or horizontal, whatever you want. I just speed along. I don't want to give it too much thought. I just want this to be an impressionistic kind of version of, you know, some beautiful forest off in the distance, and that the deer are going to have so much fun frolicking in. So I'm not really giving it much thought. You could certainly sit there and put a whole bunch of more detail. Maybe you want to have branches on yours if you want to, but my background is nice and wet, so I'm just kind of mixing that brown in with the white that's behind it. If you want a wide tree, just feel free to make it a little bit wider. And that's all I'm going to be doing for that step. I will be using my knife for the next step, so you'll want to wash it and dry it and get ready for that step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the first layer to our deers. We're going to be using our knife, and I'm going to be using brown and orange paint. And I know that I'm going to be using this wacky tool, so in my head I'm thinking abstract, abstract, abstract. I'm not concerned about it being photorealistic. Hopefully I'll get it in a believable shape that it looks like a deer, but if yours ends up a little bit different than mine, that's all right. Once we put the ears on it, everybody's going to think it's a deer anyways. I'm going to have two. You could have one huge one. You could have 16. You feel free to make as many as you want. I'm going to show you how to do them in 2 different positions, and you feel free, you know, to have fun and do what you want. I'm going to alternate picking up brown and orange. So that way, both of my deer, they have a variety of this nice rustic kind of rich color to them. So I'm going to start with brown paint. I don't have a lot on my knife. I'm really just going to kind of get myself a little bit of a shape, and then I'll color it in afterwards. So I'm going to have my first ones somewhere in this vicinity, maybe about halfway over my canvas is where the rear end is going to be. And you can strategically place yours based on your trees if you want to. I have this tree right here, so I think I want that kind of in the middle of his back, so that's where I'm going to place my first one. So I'm just going to kind of make myself a little bit of an arcing line. I'm going to consider this to be the rear end of my deer, and I'm going to have it come wherever I start. It's going to be about halfway between that back and my land is where I'm going to start to curve it under for the belly. So I'm going to just give it a little bit of a curve like that. And deer have a little bit of a poofy chest, so I'm going to have a little spot that almost pokes out over on this side. Maybe I need to put my paint on the other side of my knife. That would help out quite a bit. So maybe something like that. And then this is going to kind of come in an upward motion. I'm going for the neck at this point. And you'll see how I'm going to make this look as I finish the shape. But the head is going to be a little bit more narrow at the top. It's almost kind of on the square side. I'm going to put mine maybe somewhere around here. But I'm going to make the neck as it comes down into the body a little bit wider than the top of the head. So something like this. And again, once we put them antlers on, everybody's going to know it's a deer. So this is going to be kind of the shape that I'm going for. I think right now I'm going to wipe a little bit of my brown off. Maybe mix that in a little bit and pick up a touch of orange, because I definitely want some orange in this body shape. So I've got the body and the neck and the head shape on there right now. I'm going to put the ears and the legs on in a second here, but I want to get some of this orange color in here. So I just added a touch of orange, and I'm just really kind of scraping it like we did the land. That way you get these nice, beautiful light spots and dark spots. And now that I've got that, you can see how the chest area kind of comes out a little bit further than the head. And again, you might manipulate yours a little bit more. I've got some legs that I want to put on here. So I'm going to have it kind of like maybe one leg is hidden. So you're going to see 3 legs on mine. So I'm going to have one coming down in through here. And if you can, you know, have yours looking like there's 4 legs and make it look pretty natural, that's totally fine. I wouldn't really be too concerned about what happens when it meets the ground, because we're going to be adding some strategically placed foliage when we get down there. So right now I just am using my orange and my brown. I'm making the legs a little bit wider as they meet that body, and a little bit more slender as they come down and meet the land. So that's going to be 2, and then I'm going to put one on that coming off of the back end. So I just want it to look like it's naturally coming from that area. So I'm just kind of making a stick coming out of the body. I'm not really concerned about if I've got a knee on there or if I've got a hoof on there or anything along that line. Just something that's going to look representational. We'll add some shadow and stuff later too to make it look a little bit more realistic. But I am going to add a couple of little ears. So I'm going to put them near the top of the head, but not totally at the, if this is the tippy top of the head, I'm going to add them just a little bit below that, and they're just going to kind of come out the side and then point at the end. And I know that this is, you know, we're using a difficult tool, so if you want to break out your little paintbrush, you could certainly do that for these smaller details, but I'm just having fun with it. And my, you know, painting, when I'm doing these abstracts, I think whatever happens, happens. It's, you know, that's the beauty of doing these kind of paintings, that you just get to kind of freeform it and, you know, have fun with it. I like those ears. So I'm going to go on to my next one, which is going to be over in this vicinity. This one's going to be further off in the distance, and it's going to be, we're going to see the side profile of it. So I'm going to have mine just kind of like, almost like a sideways oval. Maybe it's higher, you know, in the rear end a little bit, and it's going to be shorter than this one because he's off in the distance. And I'm really just kind of making myself a body right now, the side profile of it. And I'm going to have in the chest area, this is going to drop a little bit lower than this side here. And then I'm going to bring that head up. I probably shouldn't have put it right in front of a tree, but you know, that's what happens when you're doing this on the fly like this. But I'll put more orange in it so it'll stick out a little bit more. And then I'm just going to kind of manipulate some little head in through here, maybe something like that. Mine has definitely not gotten all of his winter coloring. I have lots of deer where I live, and as it gets closer to the winter time, they tend to be more camouflaged in with the trees. So we're gonna pretend like ours haven't done that yet. So I'm gonna put a couple of little ears on this one. Maybe mine are trying to be camouflaged with the autumn leaves. That's what they're doing. And then I'll put another little ear, and maybe you don't even see your ears all that well. We'll put the antlers on it a little bit too. So this one I am going to have 4 legs. Again, if you can find 4 legs, great. If you only have 3, one's hidden behind the other one, no worries. And again, I'm going to have one coming off the rear end here. And it's just kind of making its way down towards the land. And again, you're going to find your groove with this little tool. And, you know, if you have a wide leg like I just created, that's okay. We can just, you know, use our finger to make it go away a little bit. And then I'm going to have another one maybe in through this area. And again, it's just all about having fun with this little tool. And I'm gonna have mine look like he's taken a step forward like that. I might have to work on his rear end a little bit, just poof it out so it makes more sense with that other leg. And then I'm gonna have maybe a couple of legs coming in through here. And again, you can use I'm using the orange and the brown, just kind of alternating them. So I've got these different color variations, and then I got another leg coming somewhere in through here. And then we are going to be using the same tool for the next step. So once you've got your first layer of these fabulous deer on here, you can wash and dry this tool and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we are making some antlers. I'm gonna be using my knife, and I'm gonna be using black and white, but you could certainly use brown or orange or whatever you'd like to use is totally fine. I'm gonna start with black. I'm gonna get my antlers in shape, and then I'm gonna add some little cute like highlights on them. So they come from the top of the head, which you probably could have figured that part out. And you can be as big and as bold as you want them to be. So I'm gonna do this one first. I'm gonna kind of come up like this. You can kind of tap your knife if you've got a good amount of paint on there, or you can kind of drag it. Whatever, technique works best for you, just work with it. If you run through some wet paint from your background, just get it to intermingle with it. I'm gonna make some big antlers that are gonna be really, this is the buck that my dad always wanted to catch when I was growing up. We had a lot of land, and we used to deer hunt in the wintertime. Well, I didn't, my dad did. And he was always looking for the big buck with all the points on the antlers. So I am strategically making this in honor of him, and hopefully, he will someday get that deer that he's always wanted. But maybe he can live vicariously through my painting. So I'm going to make a really big rack of antlers in through here. And I actually have some wet paint that I'm going through, so I might not even need to use any white later. I'm just kind of working it in right now as I'm doing these antlers. And both sides don't have to look exactly the same. So they can certainly look different from one side to the other. You can have one way bigger and have more points on it than the other, or just have fun with it. This is a really great step to just enjoy the process and make it as detailed or as bold as you want it to be. I've got kind of one or two main parts on the antlers, almost like branches on a tree, where you have that main section to it, and then you have the little pieces that come off of it. So that's kind of what antlers look like to me. Moose antlers are much different than deer antlers, but you can certainly, if maybe yours are going to end up looking like moose, you just have fun. Those are like way thicker antlers. They're like, and they have like fuzz on them too. But we're not painting moose today. We're just painting little deer. These can curve as they go up towards the top. But again, just have fun with this. Make them as large as you want. You can have a couple of different sections coming off of it. Just have fun. I'm having a bunch of fun here. I'm gonna just make this one maybe curve up a little bit more. I know that they probably need to curve a little bit so they don't fall over, I think. I don't know anything about deer antlers other than they're really cool. I don't even know what purpose they serve. What purpose do antlers serve? Maybe they're I don't, do deer fight? Do they protect? Does a buck deer protect his woman, his female deer? Maybe that's what these are for. Maybe they're for, I don't know what the antlers purpose is on deer. It's a good question. Maybe you know. So once I've I've got these antlers all nice and strategically placed, I'm going to stick a little bit of white paint on my tool, and then I'm just going to put some little highlights here and there. So if you did do any area that you're like, oh, I wish I didn't do so much there, just add a little bit of white paint to it and get this to be impressionistic and abstract and just have a whole lot of fun with it. And then we are going to use this same tool for the next step. So once you've got your beautiful antlers all nice and abstractly painted in here, you can wash this tool. Yeah, that works. And get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are adding the dark shadowy areas of the bodies on the deer. So I'm going to use my fancy palette knife again, and I'm going to be using black paint. And we're just going to strategically make some dark marks that are going to make the face pop out. We'll darken the ears. We're going to put little shadows underneath the chests and stuff, so that way we've got a little bit of dimension in our abstract world. So I'm going to add just a touch of black to my palette knife, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to work on this one first. Now, if anything goes wrong and you're like, oh my God, I just put way too much black on my canvas, just wipe your palette knife off on your paper towel. You can scrape it off. You can just kind of work it in or pick up some more orange or brown, because black does have a tendency to get away from us if we are not careful. So I'm going to put a little bit of black in through here. This is just going to be a little like shadowy area underneath that chest, just to tell the story that, you know, this is kind of a three-dimensional object that we're painting. I'm going to put maybe a little bit underneath this belly area in through here. Maybe I'll put a little bit on the back side of the neck, so that way you can see the some kind of definition between the neck and the body. So I can just tap in a little bit of black down this side, and then all of a sudden now I've got separation between my neck and my back. I'm going to put some underneath where I want my face to go. So I'm going to have my face somewhere in here where it belongs. Sorry. Sometimes I think I know I need to tell you where things go, but I'm pretty sure you could have figured out that the face is going to go in through there. So I'm just going to give myself almost like a little bit of a jawline with this black paint, and then I will pull it down into the neck a little bit. And you might be working on top of wet paint, and if so, just don't push too hard, and you can almost lay that black paint on top of the paint underneath. But if you needed to, you could certainly dry your canvas if you're having difficulty manipulating the paint the way that you want it to. And I'm just going to give this nice little shadowy area under here, getting it to work in a little bit with that other paint that I have, just so it doesn't look like a firm line. And then I'm going to add a little bit of black inside the ears, so that way it looks like we've got a little bit of shadow inside there. And then I'm going to put a little bit of a black dot for the nose and for the eyes. We'll add a little bit more dimension on the face in a minute, but I'm going to put almost like a little ovally spot for my nose somewhere in through here. And I'm just using the black paint to do it. And then I'll put a little slits for the eyes. My deer is kind of looking that way, so I might put this left one is going to be a little bit closer to the edge of the canvas, so something like that. I know it looks a little funny right now, but when we put the highlights around the face, it'll make a little bit more sense. So I'm going to go hop over to this guy over here, and I'm going to put some more black paint on my tool. This one I actually want to give a tail to, so while I'm here, I'm just going to use this black paint to kind of give myself, well, you can't see it, so we'll just put it a little bit further out like that. I'm going to put a little bit of black paint on his back, like this is maybe in the shadow kind of area, as if, you know, the light is over there somewhere. And I'll also do it behind the neck area in through here. you know, and again, you can kind of have fun with this if you want, you know, I'll put a little bit underneath his belly, maybe something like that. You could even utilize it behind a leg if you wanted to. So you could on this one could get a lot, you know, in strategic places just to kind of tell the story that this one's set back a little bit farther. You could put some between the front legs if you wanted to. So, ooh, a little fly on my canvas. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the face. I want him to be kind of looking over at that one. So I'm going to put my shadow on the left side over here, and his neck just got a little bit wider, which is totally fine. And this way we'll be able to give a little bit more definition on that face in a minute. So just pulling this a little bit over like that. And then I've got to put a little bit in the ears, so I'm putting just a little swipe in those ears. I'm going to put a little dot for the nose. I'm going to have it facing that way a little bit more, so this is going to be way over on the edge of the face, and I'm doing kind of like a sideways oval. And then I'm going to do, I think I'm only going to have one eye on this one, like the other eye is on the other side of the face. So I'm just going to do a little slit right in through there, maybe a little bit more so you can actually see it. And that's all I'm going to do for this step. We are going to use the same tool for the next step. So once you've got your darker areas on your deer, you can wash and dry this tool and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we are painting some leaves abstractly on our trees above. I'm using my knife. The colors that I'm gonna be using are orange, yellow, and white. And I'm gonna have them pretty heavy on the right and the left. I'm gonna be less heavy in the middle, just so it almost looks like it's encapsulating our beautiful deer. So I'm just gonna start with some orange paint. I'm going to be kind of tapping and streaking throughout this process because those are my technical knife terms. So I'm just going to really kind of put some on like this. I'm not really doing a whole lot initially because I know once I get into the yellow and the white, that's going to help to make this look way better. So I just put some more orange on my brush and I'm just going to kind of tap some in through here. And if your canvas is wet, great, just let happen what's going to happen. And now that I've got some of that on there, now I'm going to pick up some yellow and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to kind of tap in some yellow in through here, and I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. And again, I'm doing it heavier over on the right and definitely less heavy as it gets towards that center. Now I'm going to pick up white and I'm going to just kind of get these to do whatever it is I want them to do. So I'm really just going to kind of tap my tool on top of these, so it's just an assortment of these autumn leaf colors. So I suppose you could use, you know, if you've got red, you could use red on it. I really am digging this yellow and orange. So that's the color I've chosen to do. I just picked up a little bit more white. So now I'm just kind of tapping in a little bit more of this color, and I've got remnants on my tool. So the remnants is where I can kind of almost bring it in like lighter speckly marks into the center. So just have as much fun with this as you want. You might want to go hog wild and put, you know, a million streaks and marks and whatever really is visually appealing to you is what you should do. That's the beauty of this style of painting. I think I'm going to bring some a little bit lower, maybe down, you know, a little bit down in through here, as if maybe they're starting to fall off the tree, and just have fun with it. I just picked up a little bit more orange, but you can layer these on here if you want. I'm digging that. I might put a little bit more orange up at the top. And then we are going to be using the same tool. I like doing abstracts. We're going to use the same tool for the next step, but you're going to want to wash it and dry it so you can just get ready for that. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing our ground. I'm using my knife, and the colors that I'm using are green, orange, yellow, and white. And I'm going to do something pretty similar to what I did up top, but my goal here is to, have it look like there's maybe some leaves that have fallen, but I also want to make sure I have a decent transition from my forest to my ground. So I will end up tapping some of these colors going up into my forest area and probably in front of my deer legs, so that way I can disguise them properly or if I need to. So I'm gonna just pick up some green paint, and I'm just gonna kind of start tapping and manipulating it in here. I'm going to reserve my white paint for kind of the last paint that I use. I'm probably not going to use a lot of white paint. And you can, again, just get this to do whatever you want. You can have your tool being sideways or up and down or just kind of splotchy, whatever is visually gonna work for you. That's, again, what you want to do. I just picked up some yellow. I really want some of this yellow to kind of poke its head up into my forest kind of area. I wanted some of that green too, so I've just picked up some green with my yellow. And again, just get it to, you can have it kind of streak up if you want to. You could almost like pull it up in these almost like little grassy things. You can layer it on there, just pat it, whatever movement your hand wants to do. That's what's going to make it look the most natural. It just lets the most natural. It's an abstract. It's not going to look natural, but it does allow you to just express that creative, movement that your body wants to do. I'm picking up some orange now. I'm going to let some of these orange little leaves just kind of happen over here. And you can have the paint really thick. You can have it really thin. Now I'm just alternating colors. I just put some more yellow on my tool, because I want some to be intermingled in through here. I'm picking up orange now. So I'm really just having fun getting these to all kind of work together in as vibrant or as subtle of a way that I want it to happen. So if you want yours to be more subtle, maybe you come in with some more brown. Maybe you come in with a little bit of black towards the bottom. Whatever works for you. Again, on the visual side is really where you want to take it. And now I'm just going to pick up a tiny bit of white just to make sure that I've got a little bit of dimension as it's coming into the ground area. That white will help to give you just those pops of highlights that give it more of a three-dimensional look in our little abstract world that we're creating. And then we're going to use this same tool for the next step. So once you've got your beautiful ground all nice and laid in here, you can wash this tool. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to stop. You can wash this tool and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we are finishing our faces. So I'm gonna use my knife. I'm gonna be using mostly white, but I might end up using a little bit of brown and a little bit of orange too. So we're doing really small details here, and if you would like to, you can certainly use your small brush. I'm gonna use my knife because I want to happen what's gonna happen in this abstract world that we're painting today. But if you are having difficulty, feel free to use your small brush. So I'm going to put a teeny bit of white paint on my knife, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little highlight above that nose area that we created earlier. So I'm just going to kind of put a little bit of white paint on there. I have a little fly that's driving me nuts today. That's the joys of living in the woods. I have flies. So I put a little highlight there, and then I'm just going to kind of pull it up that little muzzle area. And you might not get a lot of paint to actually pull up, and that's okay. You can always add more paint to the area if you want to. This is really just kind of giving us some shape for that nose. And I'm starting very subtle. You can always add more paint. It's tough to take it away once it's on there, but you can always, you know, add more as you need to. And then once I've got that little highlight on there, you can bring it down along the edge of the little nose part if you need to or want to. And then I'm going to put a little highlight around the eyes. So a lot of the deer, at least from where I live, have almost like white markings around their eyes. So I'm just going to make mine a little representational of that. So I'm going to put a little white area there and white area over on this side, and you can see mine is very white. So I'm going to add some brown and orange to my palette knife just to kind of dull that out a little bit. And of course you can have fun with it and manipulate it as much as you need to, or maybe I bring back some of the black if I need to. So I'm just going to kind of you know, just work with what I got. And if I need to, I think I'm adding a touch more black back into this eye over here, just because it went a little too carefree on me there. And then I'm going to add a little bit maybe of a brown, orange, and white underneath that nose too, just to make sure that we've got a little mouth there too. That's looking pretty good. Maybe he's got a little cheek in through here. And again, just have fun with it. My main thing was to get that nose to be nice and light, and to get a little highlight around those eyes. And then you just kind of keep tweaking it until you've got as much of a of an appearance of that face as you want. And you can tweak anything else on there that you want to. If you wanted a little highlight on the ears, you could do that too, you know. So just have fun, you know, step back for a minute, see if there's any, you know, things that you want to change. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing over on the other deer, which is give him a little highlight over his, I just totally put my hand in my wet paint for the ground. That's okay. That's the, you know, little joys of doing this. So a little white highlight on the nose, and then I'm going to pull that paint up the little muzzle. I'm sure that's what it's called. I'm being funny. It's probably not what it's called at all. But the nose part, the bridge of the nose. So now that I've got a nice little highlight there, I just pull it down the sides of the nose, which gives the illusion of shape. So that helps with that. Then I'm going to put a touch of white at the top, or even around those eyes if I want to. Maybe like that. And like that, that works. Maybe, I know I don't have an eye on the other side, but that's working out pretty well for me. And I'm going to put a touch of a highlight on my ear just so you can see those ears. I need more paint on my brush or my tool if I want you to actually see it. Something like that, something like that. Yeah, that's cute. I can see both of their faces. I can see some definition. Excellent. All right, so we have one more step to go, and it's going to be with your tiny brush, so you can get that out and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of any painting, which is to sign it. So I usually sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right corner, but you could certainly sign yours wherever you'd like to. I'm going to be using my small brush, and I'm going to be using black paint. I think I'm going to sign this one in the bottom right corner. So I am going to do my initials. You could certainly do your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you'd like. It's totally up to you. It's your identifying mark, so you feel free to do it whatever way you'd like. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you made yourself a fun, woodsy, abstract painting, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.